I stood in my Houston courtroom, gavel in hand, sentencing a white female cop, Officer Lauren Pierce, to 5 years for assaulting a black teen during a traffic stop. She sneered, spitting out, "You'll regret this, Hayes," as bailiffs dragged her away. Everyone thought justice was served, me included. But that night, my phone buzzed with a video. My house burning, flames licking the sky. A text followed. "This is just the start." What seemed like a win unraveled fast, and my life was about to become a nightmare. What would she do next? Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from. And if you stand for justice against corruption, hit like and subscribe for more gripping tales like this one coming your way. I'm Marlon Hayes, 42 years old, a black man who fought tooth and nail to sit on a bench in Houston, Texas, a city where justice often feels like a mirage for people like me. They don't say it out loud anymore, but I've heard the whispers my whole career, the sneers about how I'm just an affirmative action pick, how my robes don't belong on my shoulders. Today, though, I thought I'd proven them wrong. I just sentenced Officer Lauren Pierce, a white cop with a rap sheet longer than most felons, to 5 years in federal prison for slamming a black teenager's head into his car hood during a traffic stop over a busted taillight. The kid, 17, had sobbed in my courtroom, his face still swollen while Pierce sat there, arms crossed, her platinum blonde hair pulled tight, blue eyes glinting with something venomous. She didn't flinch when I read the verdict, just leaned forward and hissed those words, "You'll regret this, Hayes," like a snake spitting poison. I brushed it off as the last gasp of a cornered bully. The bailiffs hauled her out, her boots scuffing the polished floor, and the gallery exhaled relief. So I felt it too, pride swelling in my chest as I gathered my papers and left the courthouse, the late March sun dipping low over Houston's jagged skyline. Driving home, I replayed the day, the weight of my gavel still echoing in my mind. I'd done it, held the line against a system that bends over backwards to shield its own. My house sat on a quiet street in 3rd Ward, a modest 2-story I'd bought after years of saving, a symbol of everything I'd built despite the odds. But when I turned the corner, my stomach dropped. Smoke clawed at the sky, thick and black, curling from where my home should have been. I slammed the brakes, my sedan lurching to a stop, and stumbled out, the heat hitting me like a fist. Flames roared through the shattered windows, devouring the walls, the roof collapsing in a shower of sparks. Firefighters shouted over the crackle, hoses blasting water that seemed useless against the inferno. I stood there, rooted, watching everything I'd earned turn to ash. A captain approached, his face grim under his helmet. "Arson," he said, voice low. "Someone doused the place in gasoline. You got enemies, Judge?" My throat tightened. I didn't answer, just nodded, my eyes scanning the wreckage. Then I saw it, carved into the charred remains of my mailbox, still smoldering at the curb. LP, Lauren Pierce. My blood ran cold. She'd been locked up less than 12 hours and already her shadow was here, scorching my life. I drove to a motel that night, the acrid smell of smoke clinging to my suit, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. Sleep didn't come, just flashes of her sneer, her threat replaying like a broken record. Morning brought no relief. My phone buzzed non-stop as I brewed cheap coffee in the dingy room, the TV flickering with news. I flipped it on, expecting updates on the fire. But instead, there I was, my face plastered across the screen. "Judge Marlon Hayes, race-baiting tyrant," the headline screamed. Pierce's cop buddies had hit the internet hard, a coordinated swarm of posts calling me a corrupt activist who'd framed her out of spite. "Hayes got no business judging us," one anonymous account snarled, a badge emoji pinned to the profile. "Time to take him down." I scrolled X from my phone, the notifications piling up like a landslide. Death threats flooded in, each uglier than the last. "Burning your house wasn't enough, Coon," one read. "We know where you sleep." Another had a photo of my courtroom, my bench circled in red with "Target acquired" scrawled across it. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to breathe. I'd faced hate before, stared it down in defendants' eyes, in jurors' sidelong glances. This was different though, a beast with teeth. I called my clerk, Sheila, a steady woman in her 50s who'd stuck with me through worse days. Her voice trembled when she answered. "Marlon, I can't do this," she said, barely above a whisper. "They're outside my apartment, banging on the door, calling me a traitor for working with you. I'm sorry, I'm out." The line went dead. I sat there, stunned, the motel room shrinking around me. Sheila was gone, scared off by the same venom now choking me. I thought I'd won, thought exposing Pierce in that courtroom would be enough. I'd underestimated her reach, the loyalty she commanded even from a cell. She wasn't just a rogue cop. She was a spark in a powder keg of hate, and I'd lit the match. I drove to the courthouse, determined to file a report to fight back. The streets blurred past, Houston's humid air pressing against the windows. I parked, stepped out, and called my sister Tanya to check on Mom. She lived in a nursing home 30 miles out, frail at 83 but sharp as ever. "She's fine," Tanya said, her voice tense. "I was there this morning. Why?" I hesitated, then told her about the fire, the threats. "Keep her safe," I said. "This isn't over." I hung up, thinking I could handle it, that I'd protect what mattered. Then my phone rang again, an unknown number. I answered, my gut twisting. "Judge Hayes," a gravelly voice said, dripping with malice. "You should check on your mama." The line clicked off. My heart slammed against my ribs. I dialed Tanya back, no answer. Panic clawed up my spine as I sped toward the nursing home, breaking every limit, the city streaking past in a haze. When I got there, the staff were in chaos. Nurses huddled by the front desk, eyes wide. "She's gone," the director stammered, wringing her hands. "Someone took her an hour ago, forced her into a van. We called the police, but..." Her words faded as I bolted outside, scanning the lot. A janitor, sweeping near the curb, pointed down the road. "Saw a guy in a deputy's uniform driving off with her," he said, voice shaking. "Big fella, buzz cut, white as snow." I froze, the pieces snapping together. Pierce's brother, Greg, worked as a deputy in Harris County. I'd seen him in court once, looming behind her, his eyes cold and unblinking. My knees buckled, but I caught myself against the wall. Mom, my rock, the woman who'd raised me alone after Dad died in a factory accident, was in their hands now. The fire was a warning. This was war. I called the precinct, demanding action, my voice cracking as I described Greg, the van, anything I could remember. They promised to look, but their tone was flat, rehearsed. I knew that sound, the shrug of a system that didn't care. Pierce's allies were everywhere, and I was alone, staring down a machine that wouldn't stop. My house was gone, my clerk had fled, and now Mom was a pawn in their game. I'd thought sentencing Pierce was the end, but it was just the first domino, tipping me into a hell I couldn't see coming. After Mom vanished, I didn't sleep, didn't eat, just drove through Houston's back roads, my mind a storm of rage and fear. How could they take her, an 83-year-old woman who'd never hurt a soul? What kind of monster uses a mother as leverage? I'd sentenced Lauren Pierce to 5 years, thinking I'd caged the beast, but her brother Greg had ripped that illusion apart. The nursing home's janitor had seen him, a hulking deputy with a buzz cut, shoving Mom into a van, like she was nothing. My hands trembled on the wheel, the motel's stale coffee long gone cold in my cup holder. I called every cop I trusted, which wasn't many, and got nothing but static. The precinct's promises felt hollow, their voices dripping with that same indifference I'd heard 1,000 times in court. I knew I had to find her myself. Tanya, my sister, met me at a gas station off I-10, her eyes red from crying. She clutched a photo of Mom, her frail frame in a floral dress, smiling at a church picnic last summer. "You can't do this alone," she said, voice breaking. "They'll kill you too." I hugged her tight, promising I'd bring Mom back, but inside I wasn't sure. Greg Pierce wasn't just a deputy, he was Lauren's muscle, a man with a badge and a grudge. I remembered his stare in court, unblinking, like he was measuring me for a coffin. Tanya gave me a lead. A witness at the nursing home had seen the van head east, toward an industrial sprawl near the ship channel. I thanked her, sent her to a friend's place for safety, and peeled out, the sedan's engine roaring as I chased the only thread I had. The ship channel stank of oil and rust, a maze of warehouses hulking under the grey dawn. I parked a mile out, grabbed a flashlight from the trunk, and crept through the shadows, every creak of metal making my pulse jump. What if I was too late? What if Mom was already gone? I shoved the thoughts down, focusing on the tire tracks cutting through the mud. They led to a sagging building, its windows boarded, a rusted sign reading "Porter Storage" barely hanging. On! I circled it, spotting the van parked out back, its rear doors ajar. My breath caught as I peered inside. A wheelchair, Mum's, tipped over, her shawl tangled in the spokes. I swallowed hard, slipping through a broken side door, the air thick with dust and menace. Inside, voices echoed, low and rough. I crouched behind a stack of crates, peering through the slats. Greg stood there, his deputy uniform wrinkled, barking. Orders at 2 men in tactical gear. Mum sat in a chair, wrists bound with zip ties, her head bowed but alive. Relief hit me like a wave, followed by fury. Greg's voice cut through the haze. Hayes thinks he's untouchable. Let's see how he rules without her. One of the men laughed, a cruel guttural sound. I gripped the flashlight, weighing my options. Could I take them? 3 against 1, all armed? I pulled out my phone, hands slick with sweat, and dialed 911, whispering the address, begging for speed. Then I waited, every second a knife in my gut, watching Greg pace, his boots scuffing the concrete. Sirens wailed in the distance, closer, closer, until red and blue lights flooded the warehouse through cracked windows. Greg froze, cursing, as the 2 goons bolted for the back. I sprang up, shouting, "Police, drop it!" Greg spun, his gun raised, but the front doors exploded open, cops swarming in, yelling commands. He smirked at me, that same venomous glint Lauren had before tossing his weapon and raising his hands. "You're done!" I snarled, rushing to Mom. She looked up, eyes cloudy but fierce, whispering, "Marlon, you came." I cut her ties, holding her as paramedics stormed in. Greg was cuffed, shoved into a squad car, and I thought for one fleeting moment I'd beaten them. Justice felt close again, tangible, as I rode with Mom to the hospital, her hand frail but warm in mine. She stabilized by noon, hooked to monitors in a sterile room at Houston General, her breathing steady. I sat by her bed, exhaustion pulling at me, but pride flickered too. I'd found her, saved her. I called the DA, filed charges against Greg for kidnapping, assault, everything I could throw at him. The cops who'd raided the warehouse clapped me on the back, calling me a hero. I let myself believe it, let the tension ease as I stepped outside for air, the sun high and merciless. But that night, everything flipped. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Deputy released, evidence insufficient. What? How could they? Let him walk. I called the precinct, furious, and got a stammering desk sergeant. Witness recanted, judge, no proof. My stomach sank. Greg was free, and Pierce's machine was still grinding. I flipped on the TV in Mum's room, hoping for clarity, and saw something worse. A crowd outside the courthouse, maybe 50 strong, waving signs and torches, burning a pile of black robes with my name stitched on them. The camera zoomed in. "Hayes must pay," one banner read, the letters jagged and red. Pierce's cop buddies had rallied, turning my win into a spectacle of hate. I stared numb as the reporter droned. Supporters of Officer Lauren Pierce claim Judge Hayes fabricated charges against her and her brother. My victory curdled in my throat. I'd saved Mom, sure, but at what cost? I stepped outside, needing space, and froze. My sedan sat in the hospital lot, 30 feet away, gleaming under the floodlights. Then it erupted, a fireball tearing through the night, glass and metal raining down. Nurses screamed, ducking behind cars, as I hit the ground, ears ringing. When the smoke cleared, I stumbled toward the wreckage, legs shaking. A scrap of paper fluttered from the driver's seat, unburned, pinned under a shard of windshield. I snatched it, my hands black with soot. "Next time it's you," it read, the handwriting sharp and deliberate. My knees buckled. Who rigged it? How did they get so close? I looked back at Mom's window, her silhouette safe behind the blinds, and realized this wasn't retribution for sentencing Pierce. It was a declaration. They'd torched my house, taken Mom, and now blown up my car, each move bolder, crueler than the last. I'd thought I'd outsmarted them, thought the cuffs on Greg meant something. I was wrong. The sirens faded as cops swarmed the lot, their flashlights cutting through the haze, but I knew the truth. Pierce's war wasn't over. It was escalating, and I was still in the crosshairs, wondering how much more I could lose. Drop a comment. With number 1 if you think Greg's release proves the system's rigged against Marlon. Give this a like if you're rooting for him to fight back, and subscribe to catch how deep this corruption runs. What's Lauren planning next to break? Him? Could she turn his own city against him? The hospital parking lot still smoked from my car's explosion, the air thick with the stench of melted rubber and gasoline. I stood there, the note crumpled in my fist. Next time it's you, seared into my brain. Mom was safe inside. Guarded by a cop, I'd begged to stay, but I felt the walls closing in. Lauren Pierce's reach had torched my house, snatched Mom, and now turned my sedan into a fireball, all while she smirked from a prison cell 90 miles away. Her brother Greg walking free after kidnapping her was proof enough. The system wasn't just bent, it was hers. I'd bruised but unbroken, slept 3 hours on a hospital chair, then drove a rental back to the courthouse at dawn. My robes waited there, my duty, my fight. I wasn't done yet. Houston's downtown loomed gray and humid, the courthouse a squat fortress of limestone and glass. I parked a block away, wary of every shadow, and slipped in through a side door. The halls buzzed, clerks whispering, their eyes darting to me then away. I caught snippets. Did you see the news? He's finished. My office smelled of old coffee and paper, a sanctuary until I flipped on my laptop. The screen lit up with hell. Doctored footage, grainy but damning, showed me planting a baggie of white powder in Pierce's squad car, my face clear as day. The timestamp matched her arrest date, but I'd never touched her cruiser. My stomach churned as I scrolled X, the hashtag Hayes the fraud trending. Corrupt black dictator framed an innocent cop, one post screamed, racking up thousands of likes. Resign or rot, another spat, with a photo of me circled in red XX. Protests erupted outside, their chants shaking the windows. No justice, no peace. Hayes is the real police. Signs bobbed in the crowd. Pierce was right scrawled in bold. I peeked through the blinds, saw faces twisted with hate, some familiar, off-duty cops I'd ruled against over the years. My phone rang. Chief Justice Elena Ruiz, her voice clipped. Marlon, this is a mess. You're suspended until we investigate. Don't come in. I protested. It's fake, Elena. You know me. But she cut me off. Optics matter. Stay. Away. Click. My peers turned their backs too, texts unanswered, emails ignored. Judge Carter, my mentor from law school, left a voicemail. I can't be seen with you right now, sorry. Isolation hit like a punch. The courthouse, my second home, was now a cage locking me out. I wasn't letting this stand. Pierce's crew thought they'd bury me with lies, but I'd clawed my way up from nothing, faced worse than keyboard warriors and rigged videos. I called Marcus Reed, a beat cop who'd testified for me once, one of the few I still trusted. Meet me, I said, voice low. We linked up at a diner off Fannin Street, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and grease-stained menus. Marcus slid in, his uniform rumpled, eyes tired. They're saying you set her up, he muttered, sipping coffee. I know it's garbage, but it's tight. Audio's synced, angles perfect. I leaned forward. It's edited. Who's got the skills in her circle? He thought, then snapped his fingers. Tommy Vance, ex-IT guy, works private now. Hates you since you sent his cousin up. I nodded, a lead at last. Marcus dug deeper that night, risking his badge, and called me at 2 in the morning. Found him. Vance bragged on a dark web forum about fixing a judge. Got a raw file too, unedited. My pulse raced as I met him at a parking garage, the city silent around us. He handed me a USB, the footage showing Pierce planting the drugs herself, laughing with Vance off camera. Gotcha, I whispered, adrenaline surging. I leaked it to a reporter I knew, Sarah Kim, at the Houston Chronicle. She ran it by sunrise. Judge Hayes cleared, Pierce implicated in frame-up. The story exploded, X flipping overnight. Justice for Hayes trended, my suspension lifted by noon. Chief Ruiz called, voice softer. You're back tomorrow, good work. I stood in my motel room, staring at the TV, Pierce's mugshot. Plastered across it, I'd flipped the script, turned their lie into my shield. Victory tasted sweet, sharp. like I'd finally landed a blow. But that night it soured fast. I'd moved to a new spot, a cheap apartment in Montrose, figuring the motel was too exposed. I was unpacking my suitcase, just toothbrush and a spare. Suit when glass shattered downstairs. Shouts ripped through the quiet. "Hayes, you're dead!" I bolted to the window, saw them, a mob of 20, maybe 30, faces masked, fists clutching bats and bottles. They screamed slurs, raw and guttural. "Go back where you came from," echoing off the brick. A Molotov cocktail sailed through the air, smashing my living room window, flames licking the curtains. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, but the line buzzed. Busy. My heart pounded as I ran for the stairs, smoke stinging my eyes. Outside they surrounded the building, a wall of hate. Someone swung a bat, cracking my rental car's windshield, glass spraying like confetti. Another chucked a brick, narrowly missing my head as I ducked behind a dumpster. The air reeked of liquor and rage, their voices blending into a roar. "You think you're better than us?" one bellowed, his hood slipping to reveal a buzz cut and a badge tattoo on his neck. Pierce's people, cops or their kin, I couldn't tell. I crouched helpless as they trashed the place, windows popping like gunfire. Then I saw it, dropped by a fleeing thug, a pig's head, fresh, blood pooling under it, my name carved into its snout with a knife. My stomach lurched, bile rising, as I stared at the grotesque message. Sirens finally wailed, too late, scattering the mob into the night. Cops swarmed in, flashlights sweeping, but no arrests, just tired nods. "We'll look into it," one said, his tone flat, eyes avoiding. "Mine." I stood there coughing in the smoke, the pig's head at my feet, its blank eyes staring up. The reporter's story had cleared me, sure, reinstated me. But this? This was Pierce's answer, not from a cell but through a network that didn't need her voice to strike. They'd turned my city against me, made me a target in a war I hadn't signed up for. I'd fought their smear, won back my bench, but the mob wasn't about truth, it was about power, about reminding me I'd never be safe. I drove to Mom's hospital after, the rental's cracked windshield spiderwebbing my view. She slept, machines, beeping steady, oblivious to the chaos I'd dragged her into. I sat by her bed, the pig's head burned into my mind, its stench clinging to my clothes. How many more would come for me? How deep did Pierce's hate run? I'd thought exposing the fake video was enough, thought I'd turned the tide. But this mob, this brutality was a new beast, wilder, uglier than the lies. They didn't care about evidence, they wanted blood. My suspension was gone, my name half cleared, but the cost was climbing. I gripped Mum's hand, her skin cool, hand thin, and wondered what Pierce would throw next, how much worse it could get before I broke. The mob's attack left me reeling, the pig's head still staring at me in my mind's eye as I drove away from that smoldering Montrose apartment. Glass crunched under my tires, the rental's windshield a cracked mess, mirroring the fractures in my life. Mom slept safe in the hospital, but I wasn't, not after Lauren Pierce's people turned my temporary home into a battlefield. My house was ash, my car a crater, and now my refuge was trashed, all because I dared to sentence her. I needed an anchor, someone to steady me in this storm, so I called Jamal Carter, my best friend since law school. He was assistant DA, now a black man like me who'd climbed through the same muck, sharp as a blade and loyal to a fault. "Meet me," I rasped into the phone, voice raw from smoke. "I'm falling apart." He didn't hesitate. 30 minutes, my place. Jamal lived in a tidy condo near Midtown, the kind with sleek floors and bookshelves stuffed with legal tomes. I got there at midnight, the city's neon glow buzzing outside his windows. He opened the door, tie loose, his broad face creased, with worry. "Marlon, you look like death," he said, pulling me in. I collapsed onto his couch, the weight of the past days spilling out, the fire, Mom's kidnapping, the car bomb, the mob. He listened, pouring us both whiskey, his calm grounding me. "Pierce's crew's gone feral," he said, swirling his glass. "But we'll bury them. I'll prosecute every last one." His eyes burned with that fire I'd always admired, the kind that won cases and broke corruption. I nodded, clinging to his promise like a lifeline. We strategized past dawn, piecing together what we knew. Jamal had heard whispers of a racist cop ring in Houston PD, a clique Pierce ran even from prison. "They're tight," he said, scribbling. Notes, "But sloppy, there's a trail." I told him about Marcus, the cop who dug up the fake video's source. Jamal called him in, and by noon we had a stack of files, bank records, coded texts, a burner phone log tying Pierce to half a dozen officers. One name popped, Captain Roy Dutton, a grizzled vet with a history of brutality complaints swept under. Ruggs. The trail led to a safe house in Pasadena, and Jamal grinned fierce. "We raid it, we end this." I felt unstoppable, the whiskey's burn replaced by hope. We had proof, a weapon to dismantle her empire. By afternoon, Jamal briefed the DA's office, me at his side, laying out the evidence like a war map. The room buzzed, prosecutors nodding, the air thick with anticipation. "This is Pierce's spine," Jamal said, slamming the burner log down. "We snap it. She's done." The DA, a wiry woman named Claire Ortiz, greenlit the raid, her voice steel. "Go tonight. No leaks." I stood there, chest swelling, thinking we'd finally turned the tide. Pierce's threats, her brother's freedom, the mob's rage, all of it would crumble under this blow. I left the meeting, drove to the hospital to check on Mum, her frail smile fueling me. "We're winning," I whispered, kissing her forehead. She squeezed my hand, weak but alive, and I felt like a titan, ready to crush the beast that had hunted us. But mid-meeting replayed in my head as I drove back to Jamal's. Something shifted. Claire's phone had buzzed, her eyes flicking too. It, then me, before she'd nodded us out. I shook it off, chalking it up to exhaustion until I got there. Jamal's condo was chaos, cops swarming, lights flashing through the blinds. I bolted from the car, heart hammering, pushing past uniforms, yelling, "What's happening?" A sergeant grabbed me, face grim. "Carter's under arrest." My world tilted. "For what?" I barked, shoving forward. "Bribery, evidence." "Tampering," he said, nodding to a squad car where Jamal sat cuffed, head down. I froze, staring as they pulled a briefcase from his trunk, cash spilling out, documents stamped with my signature, forged but perfect, accusing me of paying him off to frame Pierce. The precinct was a blur. Jamal hauled in, me trailing, shouting, "This is a setup." No one listened. Claire met me outside the interrogation room, her jaw tight. "Marlon, step back, you're suspended again, this looks bad." I slammed the wall. "It's Pierce, Claire, she's behind it." But evidence piled up. Bank transfers, emails, all fake but airtight, painting me as the mastermind. I stormed to the glass, watching Jamal, my brother in all but blood, glare at the table. A speaker crackled overhead, Pierce's voice cutting through, smug and cold. "Told you I'd win." My blood iced. She'd hacked the system, taunting me from her cell, her reach a spiderweb I couldn't escape. Jamal looked up, met my eyes. Through the glass, and I saw it. Betrayal flickering where trust had been. "You did this," he mouthed, believing the lie. I stumbled out, the precinct's fluorescent hum deafening, my mind spinning. How had she turned him? When did she plant this? I'd handed Jamal everything, my faith, my fight, and now he was a dagger in my back, wielded by Pierce. The raid was off, the evidence tainted, my ally gone. I drove aimlessly, Houston's streets a blur, the forged papers burning in my skull. Mom's safety, my bench, all hung by a thread. And now Jamal, the one I'd leaned on, was lost to me. Pierce hadn't just struck. She'd gutted me, using my own trust to tighten the noose. I pulled over, hands shaking, the city's pulse, mocking my collapse. What was left to fight with when even my brother turned? Drop a comment with number 1 if you think Jamal's wrong to doubt Marlon after all they've been through. Hit that like button if you're stunned by Pierce's cunning from behind bars, and subscribe to see how Marlon claws back from this betrayal. Can he outsmart her when his closest allies flipped, or will Pierce's next move shatter him for good? Jamal's betrayal cut deeper than any blade, his accusing glare through that precinct glass haunting me as I drove into Houston's underbelly. Pierce had turned my best friend against me, forged my signature to frame us both, and laughed about it through a hacked speaker. My house was ash, Mom barely safe, my car a crater, and now my ally was gone, leaving me suspended again, alone against a machine that wouldn't quit. I couldn't go back to the courthouse, couldn't face the DA's office where whispers of my corruption now echoed. I had to fight smarter, quieter from the shadows. I pulled into a truck stop off I-45, the neon sign flickering, and made a call I'd hoped to avoid. "Rico," I said, voice low, "I need you." Rico Vasquez was a private investigator I'd met years back, a wiry ex-cop with a nose for dirt and no love for badges like Pierce's. He met me at a dive bar in 5th Ward, the air thick with cigarette smoke and regret. I slid into a booth, my rental's keys jangling, and told him everything. The fire, Mom's kidnapping, the mob, Jamal's arrest. His dark eyes narrowed, fingers drumming the table. "Pierce is running a syndicate from prison," he said, voice gravelly. "You need her comms, her strings, I'll find them." I nodded, desperation clawing at me. "Fast, she's killing me piece by piece." Rico smirked, a predator's grin. "Give me 2 days." I slipped him a wad of cash, my last savings, and watched him vanish into the night, my hope pinned on a man I barely trusted. 2 days felt like 2 years, holed up in a seedy motel off Jensen Drive, the walls yellowed and peeling. I barely slept, jumping at every car backfire, every creak of the floorboards. Mum was under guard at the hospital, but I couldn't see her, couldn't risk leading Pierce's dogs to her door again. Rico called at dawn on the second day, his voice sharp. "Got it. Warehouse in Galena Park, burner phones, coded logs, meet me now." I sped there, the rental rattling over potholes, the industrial sprawl a jungle of steel and shadow. Rico waited by a chain-link fence, a duffel slung over his shoulder. He tossed me a phone, its screen glowing with texts. "Take Hayes out, and make it slow." Sent from Pierce's cell block, routed through a guard. My blood boiled. "This is it," I said, gripping the device. Her kill order. We had more. Audio of her barking commands, names of cops on her payroll, dates of hits. Rico had cracked her network wide open. I didn't trust the DA after Jamal, so I called Sarah Kim, the Chronicle reporter who'd cleared me before. We met at a park near Buffalo Bayou, the sun low, casting long shadows over the grass. She listened, recorder running as I played the audio, showed the texts. "This is dynamite," she said, eyes wide. "Pierce is done." The story hit online by midnight. Prison cop syndicate exposed, Judge Hayes vindicated. Arrests rolled in before breakfast, Dutton and 3 others nabbed, their mugshots splashed across every screen in Houston. Chief Ruiz rang me at 8, voice tight but relieved. "You're back tomorrow, Marlon. Clean slate." I stood in that motel room, the weight lifting, thinking I'd crushed Pierce's spine at last. The next morning, I walked into the courthouse, head high, robes crisp. The halls were quiet, clerks nodding respectfully, the air lighter than it had been in weeks. I took the bench in courtroom B, my first case a petty theft, routine after the chaos. The gallery was sparse, just a few onlookers. The defendant, a nervous kid in a cheap suit. I read the charges, my voice steady, feeling the rhythm of justice again. Could this be it? Had I finally stopped her? I banged the gavel, calling a recess, and leaned back, letting myself breathe. Then it happened. A crack split the air, sharp and deafening, glass shattering behind me. Pain seared my shoulder, hot and wet, as I dove under the bench, blood soaking my sleeve. Screams erupted, the gallery scrambling, deputies yelling, "Shooter!" I pressed my hand to the wound, shallow but burning, a graze from a bullet meant to kill. My vision swam as I crawled, chaos swirling above me. Deputies stormed, the room guns drawn, shouting into radios. "Sniper, east window," someone barked. I staggered up, clutching my arm, and saw it through the broken pane. A figure on a rooftop 2 blocks out, rifle glinting before it vanished. The courtroom emptied, paramedics rushing me to a gurney, their voices a blur. "He's stable, just—" "A nick," one said, wrapping the wound. I pushed them off, stumbling to my chambers, adrenaline drowning the pain. My desk was pristine except for a note slipped under the door, folded tight. I snatched it, hands shaking, and read, "You don't get to live." No signature, but I knew her venom, her handwriting from that car bomb scrap. I sank into my chair, blood dripping onto the floor, the room spinning. Who'd she hire? How'd she reach past bars and solitary? The arrests, the expose, all of it should have crippled her. But here I was, shot in my own courtroom. Her message, clear as the hole in my shoulder. Deputies swarmed outside, sealing the building, but I knew they'd find nothing, just like the mob, just like Greg's van. Pierce wasn't a cop anymore. She was a phantom, her network deeper than I'd dreamed. I'd gone underground, struck back, thought I'd won with Rico's haul and Sarah's story. The city cheered my return, my survival, but this sniper was, her reply, a whisper of death brushing my skin. I tore off my robe, the blood-soaked fabric heavy, and stared at the note, my pulse a war drum. How many more bullets had my name on them? What did she have left to throw? I'd dismantled her crew, or so I thought, but this hit was surgical, bold, a middle finger to every cop cuffing her allies that morning. My shoulder throbbed, a reminder I wasn't invincible, that Pierce played a game I couldn't map. The paramedics banged on the door, insisting on a hospital, but I waved them off, needing silence, needing to think. Mom was safe, for now, but I wasn't, and neither was anyone near me. I'd fought her from the shadows, landed a blow, but she turned my triumph into target practice, proving her hate could strike anywhere, any time. Blood dripped from my shoulder onto the courtroom floor, the sniper's bullet still singing in my ears as I clutched that note. You don't get to live. Lauren Pierce had struck again, her reach slithering past prison bars to put a hole in my robe and a target on my back. The paramedics patched me up in my chambers, their hands quick but shaky, muttering about stitches while I waved them off. I wasn't leaving, not yet. My bench was a war zone now, glass crunching underfoot, but I'd survived and that meant something. Rico's haul had landed her crew in cuffs, Sarah's story had cleared my name, and Houston cheered my return, but this graze on my arm screamed the truth. Pierce wasn't done. I needed to end her fast before the next shot didn't miss. I called Marcus Reed, the cop who'd risked his neck for me before, and Sarah Kim, my reporter lifeline. We met at a safe house in Sugarland, 30 miles from the courthouse, a squat brick box hidden behind overgrown oaks. My shoulder throbbed under the bandage, but adrenaline kept me sharp. She's talking from solitary, I said, tossing the burner phone logs on the table. How? Marcus rubbed his jaw, eyes scanning the texts. Guards on her payroll, has to be. We cut that line, she's mute. Sarah nodded, scribbling notes. I'll dig into the prison staff. Names, records, anything dirty. I leaned forward, voice low. We raid her contacts. Shut this down. Tonight. They agreed, no hesitation, my last allies in a city turning against me. We moved at dusk, Marcus pulling strings with a few honest badges he trusted. The target was a guard named Eddie Holt, a beefy guy with a rap sheet Pierce had scrubbed when he joined her ring. His trailer sat off Highway 6, rusted and sagging, lights flickering inside. We rolled up silent, no sirens, just the crunch of gravel under boots. Marcus kicked the door in, gun drawn, and I followed, my good arm gripping. A flashlight. Holt lunged for a drawer, but Marcus tackled him, pinning his bulk to the floor. Where's her phone? I barked, sweeping the beam over cluttered shelves. Holt spat. Screw you, Hayes. But his eyes flicked to a tin box under the couch. I pried it open. A burner active, texts from Pierce glowing on the screen. Torch his legacy, one read, sent an hour before the sniper hit. We hauled Holt in, the evidence airtight, and by midnight, Pierce's comms were dead. The prison, warden sweating under pressure from Sarah's calls, moved her to a max security wing. No contact, no guards she owned. Houston woke to the news. Pierce silenced, Judge Hayes hero again. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse, not with torches this time, but applause, chanting my name like a victory hymn. Marcus slapped my back. Sarah grinned over her laptop. And Chief Ruiz called, voice warm. You're a legend, Marlon. Take the bench tomorrow. My shoulder ached, but I stood taller, thinking I'd finally broken her spine. Mum was safe, my name was gold, and Pierce was a ghost in a concrete box. I'd won, hadn't I? But the next day cracked that dream wide open. I was at the hospital, checking Mum's chart, her frail hand in mine, when my phone buzzed with an email from the feds. Urgent. Audit initiated Judge Marlon Hayes. My gut sank as I opened it. Racketeering charges, allegations I'd funneled bribes through Jamal's arrest to fund a personal vendetta against Pierce. My bank accounts were frozen, every penny locked and a second notice hit. Mom's hospital funds tied to my name seized too. I bolted to the billing desk, voice cracking. "She needs care now." The clerk shrugged, helpless. "Federal hold, sir. We can't treat her without payment." Mom's machines beeped slower, her oxygen cut, her face paling as nurses wheeled her to a public ward. No staff, no meds. I called Claire Ortiz, the DA, screaming into the phone. "This is Pierce. She's behind it." Claire's tone was ice. "It's out of my hands, Marlon. Feds say you're dirty." I slammed the receiver, pacing the hall as Mom withered, her breaths shallow. My legacy, my fight, all of it was slipping through my fingers. Then my phone lit up again, an audio file from an unknown number. I hit play, and Pierce's laugh slithered out, low and vicious. "Your legacy's mine now." My knees buckled. How'd she pull this? Who'd she pay off? The audit wasn't random, it was her cronies in high places, turning the system I'd bled for into a noose around my neck. I raced to the courthouse, demanding answers, but security blocked me, their faces blank. "Suspended pending review," one said, hand on his holster. My allies were gone, Marcus tied up with Holt's case, Sarah chasing leads too late. I stood. Outside, the crowd from yesterday vanished, replaced by reporters snapping photos, shouting, "Judge Hayes, any comment on the charges?" I shoved past, the weight of Pierce's victory crushing me. Mom was dying, my career was dust, and the feds were her puppets, dancing to a tune I couldn't hear. I'd raided her line, silenced her voice, thought I'd won the war, but this audit, this seizure, was a gut punch bigger than the sniper's bullet. I drove to a cheap motel, the last cash in my pocket buying a room, the walls closing in tighter than ever. Mom's face flashed in my mind, her life draining because Pierce had turned justice into a weapon. How many strings did she pull? How deep did her hate burrow? I'd fought her with evidence, with grit, and she'd countered with a system that didn't care about truth, only power. My shoulder bandage itched, a dull reminder of the sniper, but this was worse, a slow bleed I couldn't stop. The city had cheered me hours ago, now it spat me out. And Pierce's laugh echoed in my skull, a promise of more to come. Drop a comment with number 1 if you think the feds are just Pierce's latest pawns in this twisted game. Smash that like. If you're raging at how she's strangling Marlon's life from a cell, and subscribe to see if he can save Mom from this collapse. What's her next play when the whole system's her weapon, and how far will Marlon bend before he breaks? The motel room smelled of mold and despair. My last $20 buying a night's refuge as the feds' audit choked my life. Mom was fading in a public ward, her care slashed because Pierce's cronies had frozen my accounts, turning justice into a guillotine. Her laugh from that audio file gnawed at me. "Your legacy's mine now," a taunt that echoed louder than the sniper's shot. I sat on the sagging bed, my shoulder bandage stiff with dried blood, staring at the burner phone. Rico had left me. I couldn't let her win, couldn't let Mom die because of this. I needed a move, something big, something public. I dialed Sarah Kim, my voice a rasp. "We're going loud, rally downtown tomorrow, Pierce ends here." Sarah didn't flinch. "I'll spread it. Evidence too. People need to see this." I called Marcus next, his tone wary but solid. "I'm in, Judge, got your back." By morning, word hit X, a wildfire of posts. "Justice for Hayes, City Hall, noon." I dug through Rico's files, pulling phone logs, witness statements, Holt's confession, every scrap tying Pierce to the audit. My hands shook, not from fear, but fury. Mom's face, pale and still, fueled me as I drove the rental to City Hall, its white steps gleaming under a brutal March sun. A crowd was already swelling, 100 strong, signs bobbing, "Free Hayes, stop the corruption." I stepped to a makeshift podium, a megaphone crackling in my grip, and laid it out raw. "They burned my house," I shouted, voice booming over the murmurs. "Kidnapped my mom, shot me in my courtroom, and now they're killing her with red tape." I held up the burner logs, pages fluttering. This is Pierce from prison, pulling strings to frame me, to ruin me. Here's the proof. The crowd roared, fists pumping, phones flashing as I read Holt's words, the Fed's audit timeline syncing with her orders. Sarah live-streamed it, her camera steady, and donations poured in, strangers yelling, "For your mum." I watched the numbers climb, 50,000, 70, enough to get Mum private care again. By dusk, she was back in a proper room, oxygen humming, her chest rising steady. The Feds backed off, reviewing the audit, and I stood there sweat-soaked, thinking I'd turned it around. I thanked the crowd, voice hoarse, their cheers a wall of sound. Could this be the end? Had I finally beaten her? I stepped off the stage, Marcus at my side, his grin wide. "You did it, Marlon, she's got nothing left." I nodded, letting myself believe it, the weight lifting as I waved to the sea of faces. Then the world exploded. A blast ripped through the stage behind me, wood and metal flying. A fireball swallowing the spot I'd stood minutes ago. Screams pierced the air, bodies hitting the ground, blood pooling on the steps. I spun, ears ringing, the heat singeing my skin. Marcus yanked me down. "Get cover!" But I couldn't move, staring at the carnage. Dozens down, maybe dead, their signs charred, their hope snuffed out. Smoke choked the plaza as sirens wailed, too late again. I stumbled through the haze, counting bodies, 20, 30. My stomach lurching. Who did this? How'd they plant it so fast? Paramedics swarmed, stretchers rolling, but my eyes locked on a figure across the street. Pierce's sister, Carla, a cop herself, smirking in her uniform. She vanished into the crowd as deputies grabbed me, rough hands pinning my arms. "Marlon." "Hayes, you're under arrest," one barked, cuffs snapping tight. "What?" I roared, thrashing. "Terrorism, bombing," he said, shoving me toward a squad car. The news hit live, Carla's voice on every channel. "Hayes staged this to frame us to play martyr." Cameras flashed, the crowd turning, some shouting, "Traitor." I sat in the squad car, blood and soot on my hands, the city blurring past. Carla had flipped it, taken my rally, my proof, and twisted it into a noose. The bomb wasn't just destruction. It was her counter. Bigger than the audit, deadlier than the sniper. Pierce's family didn't blink, didn't bend, just struck harder, turning my stand into a slaughter. I'd rallied Houston, saved Mom, forced the Feds back, and now I was cuffed, blamed for the blood on those steps. My shoulder burned, my head spun, but I saw it clear. Pierce's legacy wasn't hers alone, it was a dynasty of hate, and Carla was its new fist. The precinct was chaos, cops glaring as they booked me, fingerprints smearing ash on the pad. "You're done, Hayes," one muttered, his badge glinting under the lights. I sat in a cell, the bars cold, replaying the blast, the screams. How'd she rig it? Who'd she pay? The rally had been my sword, cutting through her lies, but Carla had turned it into a bomb, literal and legal, pinning me as the villain. Mum was safe for now, but I was trapped. The city's hero turned terrorist in hours. Pierce's laugh from that audio echoed again, not just a taunt, but a prophecy. I'd thought I'd won, thought the crowd's roar was my shield, but this was her answer, a massacre I couldn't outrun. The cell's concrete bit into my back as I sat, wrists raw from cuffs, the precinct's chaos fading into a dull hum. Carla Pierce had turned my rally into a bloodbath, dozens dead on City Hall's steps, and pinned it on me with a smirk and a lie. Terrorism, they'd said, slamming me in here. The hero of yesterday, now Houston's villain. Lauren Pierce's sister had outdone her, flipping my fight into a frame-up bigger than the audit, deadlier than the sniper's bullet. Mum was safe in her hospital bed, oxygen humming, but I was trapped. The bars a cold reminder of how fast Pierce's dynasty could strike. I needed out, needed proof, so I called my lawyer, Tanya's husband, Leon, whispering through the payphone. "They've got nothing solid. Get me evidence." He grunted assent, his voice tight. I paced the cell, 3 steps wide, plotting. Carla's move was bold, but sloppy, a bomb too big to hide. I'd seen her across the plaza smirking, and that meant witnesses, traces. Leon smuggled in a pen and paper through a guard I'd ruled for once, a rare ally. I scratched out names, places, anything to tie her to the blast. The The rally's live stream, Sarah's feed might have caught her. I begged Leon to grab it. Hours bled into a day, my shoulder aching under its bandage, the sniper's graze a dull pulse. Then chaos erupted. Shouts echoed down the hall, metal clanging, boots stomping. A riot, sudden and wild, inmates screaming, guards barking. I pressed against the bars, peering out, and saw them. 2 uniforms, Pierce's loyalists, their eyes locked on me, shanks glinting in their fists. They charged, the cell block a storm of noise, prisoners banging trays, drowning my yells. "Hayes!" one snarled, lunging through the bars, blade slicing air an inch from my throat. I stumbled back, heart pounding, grabbing the cot's frame to swing at him. The metal cracked his wrist, the shank clattering, but the second guard slammed the yai. Bars, his knife nicking my arm, blood blooming fast. "Pierce says hello," he hissed, grinning yellow teeth. I roared, kicking his hand, snapping his fingers against steel. The riot masked it all. No help coming, just me and them. I fought wild, adrenaline drowning the pain, until a baton cracked. Across their backs, a third guard honest, yelling, "Enough!" They retreated, limping, but their glares promised more. I slumped, bleeding, chest heaving, the cell a mess of upturned sheets and red smears. Who sent them? How'd Pierce reach into lockup? I tore my shirt, binding the cut, mind racing. Leon burst in an hour later, pale, shoving a tablet through the bars. "Got it," he panted. Sarah's feed slowed down. Carla's there, planting. Something under the stage, 20 minutes before. My pulse surged, watching the grainy clip. Her uniform, her smirk, a black bag swapped with a worker. "That's the bomb," I said, voice hoarse. "Get this to Claire now." He nodded, bolting, and I leaned back, thinking I'd cracked it. The riot was her distraction, but this video was my key. By dawn, the case collapsed. Claire Ortiz stormed the precinct, Leon at her side, slamming the footage on the desk. Carla Pierce caught red-handed, she snapped, and the DA's office scrambled, charges dropped, my cuffs unlocked. I walked out, a free man, the sun blinding after the cell's gloom. Crowds waited, chanting, "Hayes, Hayes," cameras flashing as I raised a fist, a martyr reborn. Sarah hugged me. Marcus clapped my back, and the news screamed redemption. Judge cleared, Pierce sister implicated. I stood tall, blood crusted on my sleeve, thinking I'd beaten them again. Turned their trap into my triumph. Mum was safe. My name was gold, and Carla's smirk was ash. I'd survived her prison hit, flipped the script. Victory tasted bitter but real. But it shattered fast. I drove to Mum's hospital, needing her smile, when sirens flared behind me. Not cops, SWAT. Black vans screeching, cutting me off. They swarmed, rifles up, yelling, "Down, Hayes!" I froze, hands high, as they stormed the building, boots thundering past. "Terrorist threat," their commander barked, shoving me aside. I bolted after, shouting, "What threat?" and saw them crash Mom's room. She lay there, frail, eyes wide, oxygen tube dangling as they ripped through, guns trained. "He's hiding here," one growled, scanning, then turned to me. "Where's your cell?" I gaped. "What cell?" A shot rang out, sharp and final, Mom jerking, blood blooming, on her gown. "Collateral," the commander muttered, lowering his rifle. I screamed, lunging, but they pinned me, her body limp, machines flatlining. Pierce's voice crackled on a hacked radio in the hall, cold and gleeful. "Your bloodline ends here." My world dissolved, Mom's blood pooling, her eyes blank where life had been. SWAT backed off, muttering mistaken, but I knew it wasn't. Carla's bomb had failed to kill me, so Pierce took Mom, her final piece, through a hit squad she'd twisted into her fist. I knelt there, hands slick with her blood, the hospital, a tomb. I'd fought off the shanks, broken her frame up, walked free, but this was her counter. A slaughter bigger than the rally, crueler than the audit. My mother, my rock, was gone, and Pierce's dynasty had ripped her from me. I staggered out, the SWAT vans peeling away, leaving me in silence. How'd she turn them? What lie fed this raid? I'd been a martyr hours ago, crowds cheering, but now I was hollow. Mom's death, a weight I couldn't carry. Pierce didn't need to be free. Her hate was a virus, infecting every badge, every gun, until it took everything I loved. The riot, the video, my release, all a feint for this, a kill, shot I couldn't dodge. I stood in the parking lot, the sun mocking me, her voice looping in my skull, a promise kept. Drop a comment with number 1 if you think Pierce's power over SWAT proves she's untouchable. Hit that, like if Mom's death has you furious at this injustice, and subscribe to see Marlon's next stand against her dynasty. What's left for him to fight for when she's taken it all, and how will he strike back from this abyss? Mom's blood still stained my hands as I stumbled from the hospital, the SWAT vans vanishing into Houston's dusk, their mistake a gunshot that ended her life. Pierce's voice on that hacked radio, "Your bloodline ends here," wasn't just a taunt. It was a vow, fulfilled in the crimson pooling on her gown. I'd walked out of jail a martyr hours ago, crowds cheering my name, but now I was a ghost, hollowed by her dynasty's latest blow. The rally's bomb, the audit, the sniper, all paled next to this, her most brutal strike yet. I couldn't stay, couldn't face the precinct or the courthouse, not with her reach turning every badge into a weapon. I had to vanish, to fight, from somewhere she couldn't see. I drove the rental north past city limits, grief choking me until I hit a truck stop off I-45, its neon buzz a lifeline in the dark. I washed my hands in a grimy sink, the water running red, then called Tanya, my sister, voice breaking. "Mom's gone, SWAT shot her, Pierce did this." She sobbed, a wail that cut deeper than the sniper's graze, and begged me to hide. "They'll kill you too," she said, but I couldn't stop. I needed soldiers, people who'd seen Pierce's war firsthand. I tracked down rally survivors, through Sarah's contacts, meeting them in a barn near Conroe, 40 miles out. 5 showed up scarred and furious, a teacher burned in the blast, a nurse who'd lost her brother, a mechanic with a limp. "We sue," I said, slamming the table. "The department, Pierce's crew, all of them. For Mom, for the dead." Their eyes blazed, nodding, and we built a case. Rico's files and Sarah's footage as our spine. Leon joined us, his lawyer grit unshaken, filing the suit in federal court by week's end. We named names, Dutton, Carla, every cop tied to Pierce's ring, demanding millions for the rally's blood and Mum's murder. The case hit like thunder, headlines screaming, "Hayes strikes back," X erupting with support. The trial was swift, a month of brutal testimony, survivors weeping as I recounted Mum's last breath. The jury ruled fast, 50 million awarded, Pierce's allies fired, their badges stripped. I stood outside the courthouse, the check in my hand, thinking I'd avenged her. Mum's killers were broke, jobless, and I'd won again, turned their massacre into my hammer. Tanya hugged me, tears on her face, whispering she'd be proud. I let myself believe it, let the victory sink in, a balm on the grief that wouldn't fade. But it was a trap, coiled and waiting. The payout hit my account, and hours later, feds swarmed my motel, guns drawn, yelling, "Freeze, Hayes!" I dropped the phone, hands up as they tore through, seizing the check. "Money laundering," they barked, cuffing me. "Tainted funds, terrorist ties." My jaw dropped. "What?" The lead agent smirked. "Your settlement's dirty, traced to offshore accounts," Pierce flagged. I thrashed, "That's insane!" But they shoved me into a van, the city blurring past. News hit live. Judge Hayes' fugitive fled with blood money. My face was everywhere, a wanted man, the victory flipped into a noose. Then I saw the puppet master, Pierce's uncle, Senator Paul Grayson, on TV vowing, "We'll cleanse." The system of him. My gut sank. He'd rigged it, turned my win into a manhunt, his power dwarfing Carla's bomb. I was hauled to a holding cell, but Leon bailed me out fast, cash from Tanya's savings, his jaw tight. "They've got nothing real," he said, driving me to a safe house in Lufkin, 90 miles north. "Grayson's behind it, Marlon. He's Pierce's blood, a bigger shark." I nodded, mind racing, the settlement a lure I'd swallowed whole. We hid in a cabin, woods thick around us, but helicopters chopped the sky by nightfall, their lights sweeping. "Federal manhunt," the radio crackled. "Armed and dangerous." I stared out the window. Grayson's face burned in my skull, a senator wielding Pierce's hate on a national stage. My allies dwindled, Sarah dodging feds, Marcus silenced by threats. I was America's most wanted, the rally's hero turned villain, all because I dared to win. I went dark, burner phone only, moving every night, woods to motels to abandoned sheds. Tanya called, voice trembling. "Stay safe, Marlon. For Nia, my niece, 12, her daughter, the last of us." I clung to that, promising, "I will." Days bled into a week, hiding, plotting, until I cracked Grayson's email with a hacker Leon knew, a kid named Jax. The messages were gold. Grayson to Pierce. "Hayes falls, we rise." Proof of the laundering lie, a racist cabal in Congress, cheering my ruin. I leaked it to Sarah, her Chronicle Post crashing servers. Senator exposed, Hayes framed. Grayson's career tanked, resignations piling up, and feds cleared me by dawn. Misidentified funds, they mumbled. I surfaced in Houston, crowds cheering again, thinking I'd broken Pierce's empire for good. But the breaking point came. Fast? I was at Tanya's, hugging Nia, her braids bouncing as she laughed when my phone buzzed, a live stream link. I clicked it, and my heart stopped. Nia, tied to a chair, screaming, a knife at her throat, Carla's voice off-screen. "Surrender. Or she's next," I yelled. "No!" But Tanya grabbed me, sobbing. "She's here. She was just here." The feed cut to black, then flickered back. Nia's body, limp, blood soaking her shirt, Carla's face looming. Too late. Pierce's recorded laugh looped. "You can't outrun me," a sound that shattered me. I raced to her school 10 blocks away, but found her in the gym, dead, her eyes open, accusing. Carla was gone, the knife discarded, my niece stolen by the same hate that took Mom. I collapsed beside her, the gym's silence deafening, my screams raw. How'd they snatch her so fast? Why couldn't I save her? I'd crushed Grayson, dismantled. Pierce's ring, but Carla struck harder, her blade cutting my future away. The manhunt was a feint, a distraction for this, a murder to break me where Mom's death hadn't. I held Nia's hand, cold and small, the settlement's millions meaningless, my victory's ash. Pierce's dynasty didn't need Grayson's power. It thrived on blood, on loss, and I was its prey, hunted beyond Houston, beyond reason. Nia's blood pooled on the gym floor, her small hand limp in mine, Carla's knife glinting beside her like a taunt. Pierce's laugh looped from that live stream. "You can't outrun me." A sound that broke me where Mom's death had only cracked me. Tanya's wails echoed behind, her daughter stolen by the same hate that took our mother, Pierce's dynasty striking again, harder, crueler than the manhunt, the bomb, all of it. I knelt there, the school gym a tomb, my niece's, eyes staring blank where laughter had been hours ago. Grief choked me, but rage burned hotter, a fire I couldn't douse. I'd exposed Grayson, won the settlement, thought I'd crippled them, but Carla's blade proved Pierce's empire wasn't dead, just waiting to gut me again. I had to end her, face to face, no more proxies. I slipped away before cops swarmed. Tanya's sobs fading as I drove the rental into Houston's night, my mind a storm. The courthouse, the precinct, all my old battlegrounds were useless now. Pierce's reach turned them against me every time. I needed her source, her cell, her breath in my hands. I called Jax, the hacker who'd cracked Grayson's emails. Meeting. Him in a warehouse off the East End, its walls rusted and dripping. He hunched over a laptop, acne-scarred face lit blue, nodding as I snarled, "Get me into that prison." He smirked, fingers flying. "Guard schedules, blind spots, I've got a uniform already. You're crazy, Judge." I didn't care. Crazy was all I had left. By dawn, he handed me a stolen guard ID, a grey jumpsuit, and a map of Huntsville's Max Security Wing. "She's in solitary," he said. "Good luck." I drove 90 miles north, the rental rattling, Nia's face burned into my skull. Huntsville loomed, a concrete beast under a grey sky, its razor wire glinting like teeth. I ditched the car a mile out, slipped into the uniform, the fabric stiff and sour, and clipped the ID. Officer James Reed. My shoulder throbbed under the sniper's old bandage, but I pushed through, hiking to the service gate, sweat beading, despite the chill. The guard waved me in, bored, not checking close. I moved fast, head down through clanging halls, the map in my mind guiding me past checkpoints. Solitary was a dungeon, air thick with damp and screams, and there she was, Pierce behind a steel door, her shadow pacing in the slit. I'd made it closer than ever, my hands itching to choke her rein dry. I unlocked the cell with Jax's hacked keycard, the bolt grinding, and stepped in. Pierce spun, her blonde hair matted, blue eyes sharp despite the orange jumpsuit. "Hayes," she sneered, voice a razor. "Knew you'd crawl here." I lunged, slamming her against the wall, my forearm on her throat. "Nia's dead because of you," I growled, her pulse thumping under my grip. She laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "You're too late. Riot's starting. I'm out." Alarms shrieked outside, boots pounding, shouts rising. Her loyalists swarmed. The hall a dozen strong shanks flashing as they crashed my way. I threw her down, spinning to fight, fists smashing jaws, knees cracking ribs, blood slicking the floor. They were rabid, eyes wild with her hate. But I was a storm, Nia's scream in every punch. Guards joined, batons swinging, and we pushed the mob back, their bodies piling. Pierce slipped toward the door, but I grabbed her, slamming her into the bunk, her skull cracking steel. "You're done," I snarled, ripping the ID badge off to jam a hacked feed live from my pocket cam. "Tell them," I barked, shoving it to her face. She spat blood, grinning. "I burned your house, took your mom, your niece, I'd do it again." The feed streamed, Sarah's contacts blasting it nationwide, her confession a noose tightening. Guards flooded in, real ones, cuffing her as the riot died, their batons pinning her crew. I staggered back, chest heaving, thinking it was over, her empire exposed, her escape crushed. She glared, cuffed tight, her smirk fading as they dragged her deeper into the block. I limped out, the prison a chaos of sirens and shouts, my hands bruised, my cam still rolling. The feed hit X, millions watching Pierce's words. "I'd do it again," her face a mask of venom. Houston roared online, "Lock her forever," and I stood in the yard, free air hitting me, believing I'd won the war. I'd faced her, broken her plan, turned her taunt into my blade. The guards nodded, one muttering, "You're a madman, Hayes." But I didn't care. Nia's blood, Mum's, drove me here, and I'd buried Pierce in her own cell, her dynasty, crumbling under that live truth. I started back to the rental, legs shaking, victory bitter, but mine ready to grieve, to heal. Then it hit, a sharp sting in my neck, my knees buckling as I reached the gate. I clawed at it, a dart falling, my vision blurring. A guard loomed, one I'd trusted, his face blank. "Lauren says goodbye," he whispered, syringe empty in his hand. I collapsed, the ground cold, my pulse slowing, Pierce's smirk flashing as darkness crept in. Poison, her final card, slipped through a mole I'd missed, striking mid-triumph. I'd fought her goons, broadcast her sins, pinned her in solitary, but she'd rigged this, a silent kill bigger than Nia's murder, deadlier than the bomb. My body locked, breath fading, the prison fading, her laugh the last sound in my ears. She'd lost the riot, the feed, but won my life, her hate outlasting every blow I'd landed. The prison yard spun as that dart hit my neck, the guards whisper, "Lauren says goodbye," sinking me into darkness. Pierce's poison burned through me, her last play after I'd stormed her cell, fought her goons and broadcast her confession. To millions. Nia's blood, Mum's death, every loss drove me to that moment, thinking I'd pinned her in solitary, ended her dynasty with my own hands. But she'd rigged a mole, a silent kill to snatch victory from my grip. My knees hit gravel, breath slowing, her smirk flashing as I blacked out, the Huntsville walls fading. I'd crushed her riot, exposed her live, but this was her answer. A venom bigger than Carla's knife, deadlier than Grayson's manhunt. I was done, or so she thought. I woke coughing, not dead, strapped to a cot in a dim room, antiseptic stinging my nose. My shoulder throbbed, the sniper's graze a dull ache under fresh gauze, but I was alive. Tanya loomed over me, eyes red, a stranger in scrubs at her side. "Where am I?" I croaked, throat raw. "Clinic," she whispered, gripping my hand. "Off-grid. Leon's team grabbed you after the dart." The stranger, a wiry medic named Doc, nodded, syringe in hand. "Sedative, not poison. We flushed it fast." My pulse steadied, mind racing. Pierce's mole had slipped up or she'd miscalculated, but I wasn't free yet. Tanya's voice broke. "Nia's gone, Mom too. You can't keep doing this." I sat up, wincing. "I have to, she's not done." Leon burst in, suit rumpled, tablet glowing. The feed worked, Marlon. Pierce's confession's viral. Her crew's toast, but that guard, he's ours now. They'd caught him fleeing, his pockets stuffed with her cash, and he'd sung names, dates, her whole network. I stood, legs shaky, the medic protesting, but I waved him off. She's still in there planning I end this today. Tanya grabbed me. No, Marlon, enough. But I pulled free, Nia's blank stare fueling me, Mum's blood a fire in my veins. I'd thought the poison was her win. But it was a fumble and I had one shot left. Leon handed me a recorder. Use this, she'll talk again. I nodded, grabbing the guard uniform from the floor, its stench a grim comfort. Back to Huntsville I went, 90 miles in a stolen truck, the medic's painkillers dulling my wounds, but not my rage. The prison was on lockdown post-riot. Guards, twitchy, but Jax's hacked ID still worked, slipping me through a back gate. I moved fast, grey jumpsuit blending with the chaos, inmates banging cells, air thick with sweat and fury. Solitary loomed, Pierce's door a slab of steel, and I swiped in, recorder live in my pocket. She sat on the bunk, wrists cuffed, blonde hair wild, but her eyes glinted, unafraid. Back for more, Hayes, she taunted, voice a blade. I stepped, close, towering. You missed. Nia, Mom, me, it's over. She laughed, sharp and cold. Over? I've got a riot brewing. I walk tonight. Alarms screamed again, right on cue, her loyalists slamming doors, screams rising. I grabbed her, slamming her to the wall, my good arm pinning her throat. Tell me, I snarled, recorder humming. She choked, grinning. I burned your life, killed your kin, and I'd do it twice. You're nothing. Footsteps thundered outside, her goons crashing through, a dozen strong shanks flashing in the dim light. I dropped her, spinning to fight. Fists smashing noses, boots cracking knees, blood spraying as I roared Nia's name. They were relentless, her hate in their veins, but I was a beast, Mom's last breath in every swing. A shank grazed my ribs, hot and wet, but I snapped the arm, wielding it, bone crunching. Guards piled in, batons swinging, and we beat the mob back, bodies crumpling, their screams fading. Pierce bolted for the hall, but I tackled her, slamming her to the concrete, her cuffs clanging. You're done, I growled, yanking the recorder out, its red light steady. World's hearing this. I hit play, her voice spilling. I'd do it twice, echoing loud as guards froze, staring. She thrashed, spitting, You'll rot for this. But they cuffed her tighter, dragging her back. I'd hacked the prison feed again, Jax's work. Her words blasting live to X. Millions watching her snarl, You're nothing. The riot collapsed, her loyalists pinned, the breakout dead. I stood, bleeding, chest heaving, thinking I'd nailed her coffin shut, her empire ash under my feet. I limped to the yard, guards nodding, one muttering, Crazy bastard, as I leaned on the wall, air cool on my skin. The feed looped online, Pierce's confession a death knell, Houston raging, life for her. I'd faced her, fought her dogs, turned her escape into her grave. My ribs burned, blood soaking the jumpsuit, but I felt it. Victory, raw and real. Nia's ghost quiet for a moment. The guards dragged her deeper, her screams muffled, and I turned to leave, the prison shrinking behind me. I'd stopped her, broken her last stand, her dynasty choking on its own venom. I reached the gate, legs trembling, ready to breathe, to mourn, thinking her claws were clipped at last. Then it struck, a sting in my side, sharper than the shank, my vision swimming. I staggered, clutching my ribs, and saw him, a guard I'd passed, his face blank, syringe dripping. Lauren says goodbye, he whispered, melting into the crowd as I fell, knees slamming stone. My breath hitched, poison searing. Real this? Time, not a sedative. I clawed the dirt, pulse fading, her smirk flashing as darkness rushed in. She'd lost the riot, the feed, her freedom, but planted this, a final kill bigger than Nia's death, stealthier than the bomb. My body locked, the yard blurring, her laugh looping in my skull. Victory slipping as I sank, her hate outlasting every trap I'd sprung. The prison yard faded as poison seared my veins. That guard's whisper, Lauren says goodbye. The last sound before I hit the dirt. Pierce had struck again, her mole's syringe a silent kill after I'd crushed her riot, pinned her in solitary, and broadcast her confession to the world. My ribs bled from the shank, my shoulder ached from the sniper, but this was worse, a fire stealing my breath, Nia's death, Mum's murder, every loss crashing as darkness swallowed me. I'd fought her goons, exposed her twice, thought I'd won. But she'd played her final card, a death bigger than Carla's knife, stealthier than the rally's bomb. My pulse slowed, her laugh looping, victory slipping as Huntsville's walls blurred away. I was gone, finished, or so she believed. Jolted awake, not in a grave but on a stiff cot. A sterile hum in my ears, my chest tight but beating. A dim room swam into focus. Concrete walls, no windows. A faint antiseptic sting in the air. Tanya sat beside me, tears streaking her face, Leon at her shoulder, his suit crisp despite the chaos. "Marlon," she gasped, gripping my hand. "You're alive." I coughed, throat raw. "Where am I?" Leon leaned in, voice low. "Hidden clinic east of Houston, we got you out." A medic, the same wiry doc from before, adjusted an IV in my arm. "Sedative again, laced with a paralytic," he said, eyes sharp. "Her mole botched it, we flushed it in time." My head spun, alive but barely. Pierce's poison a feint once more. Leon handed me a tablet, screen glowing. "The guards caught," he said, tapping it. "Spilled everything after we nabbed him at the gate. Pierce's whole networks. On here, names, payoffs, orders." I stared, the list endless, cops, feds, even a judge I'd sat beside, all her puppets. "And the feed," I rasped, recalling her cell, her snarl. Tanya nodded. "Live when you fell." Millions saw her brag about Nia, Mom, all of it. Exes on fire, life for Pierce trending. My pulse quickened. The recorder's red light burned in my mind. I'd pinned her, not just to me, but the world, her own words, her noose. "She's done?" I asked, voice cracking. Leon grinned, fierce. "Trial's set. She's finished." I sat up, wincing, ribs bandaged, shoulders stiff but alive. A survivor of her venom twice over. The medic protested, "You need rest," but I swung my legs off, fire in my gut. "Not yet." Tanya grabbed me. "Marlon, stop, you've won." But I shook my head. Nia's blank eyes, Mom's blood, driving me still. "She thinks I'm dead," I said, standing shaky. "That's my edge." Leon nodded, pulling a file from his bag. "Her mole thought the dose was lethal. We faked. It staged the collapse, flushed you here. She's blind now." I smirked, bitter but alive, her misstep my weapon. I'd turned her poison into a trap, her dynasty crumbling under her own arrogance. The trial hit fast a week later, Houston's federal courthouse packed, air thick with tension. Pierce sat cuffed, her blonde hair limp, blue eyes dull, no smirk. Left as the gallery glared. I took the stand, alive, a ghost she couldn't kill. My voice steady as I played the recordings, her sneering, "I'd do it twice," booming through speakers. Tanya testified, sobbing Nia's name, Leon dismantling her network with the moles list. The jury didn't blink, deliberating an hour before the foreman stood, voice firm. "Life, no parole." Pierce flinched, her first crack as bailiffs, hauled her out, her screams muffled by steel doors. I watched, chest tight, her empire ash, Grayson's cabal gutted, Carla's blade stilled. Justice, slow and jagged, had landed, but I wasn't done. I stepped outside, the sun harsh, reporters swarming, their questions abuzz I ignored. I drove to a quiet office in 3rd Ward, a storefront I'd bought with the settlement months back, its windows dark. Inside I met 3 black judges, young, sharp faces I'd mentored in secret, funded with every dime of that 50 million. "It's time," I said, handing them files, plans I'd built while Pierce hunted me. "We're a network now, nationwide, tearing down what she stood for." They nodded, eyes blazing, and I resigned that day, my robes folded, my bench empty. The news hit. Hayes quits, funds Justice League, X erupting with shock, awe. I walked free, the courthouse behind me. Pierce's scream from the trial echoing as I passed a TV blaring her fate. She'd burned my house, killed my family, poisoned me. But I'd turned her hate into a hammer, smashing not just her, but the system she thrived in. I drove to Naya's grave, then Mom's, laying flowers, whispering, "It's over." But it wasn't, not really. My network grew, judges in 10 states by month's end, rooting out corruption, racism, badge by badge. Pierce rotted in a cell, her legacy dust while mine rose immortal, a shadow she'd never touch. I'd died to her twice, risen twice, and now I was everywhere she couldn't reach. Justice not just mine, but everyone's. I stood at the cemetery, the March wind cool, my wounds scars now, not burdens. Pierce had taken everything. House, family, bench, but I'd taken more. Her power, her pride, her world. She'd screamed as they dragged her away, thinking she'd won with that dart, but I'd flipped it, a final twist she'd never see. My phone buzzed, a text from one of my judges. "First case 1, corrupt cop down." I smiled. Small but real, the first in months. Houston moved on, the city's pulse steady, but I didn't, not fully. I'd built something bigger than her. Hate, a legacy she'd choke on forever. And as I walked away, her laugh was gone, replaced by silence, by victory, by a fight that wouldn't end. This story of Judge Marlon Hayes teaches us resilience in the face of relentless systemic racism and personal betrayal. Marlon's journey begins with a courtroom victory, sentencing a corrupt cop, only to spiral into a nightmare of arson, abduction, and murder orchestrated by Lauren Pierce and her racist dynasty. Each apparent triumph, saving his mom, exposing lies, rallying a city, is met with brutal retaliation, from bombs to poison, showing how deeply injustice can entrench itself in power structures. Yet Marlon's refusal to break under this weight is the first lesson. Perseverance can outlast even the fiercest hate. His ability to turn Pierce's own weapons, her confessions, her network, against her highlights the power of cunning over despair. The second lesson lies in community and legacy. Alone after losing his mother and niece, Marlon builds a secret network of black judges, transforming personal loss into systemic change. It's a reminder that justice isn't just individual, it's collective, requiring allies and a vision beyond revenge. Pierce's downfall, locked away for life, proves that evil can overreach, but only if challenged relentlessly. Finally, the story warns us of complacency. Marlon's death, faked twice, lulls Pierce into a fatal misstep, underscoring that vigilance is key when fighting entrenched corruption. So what's the takeaway? Stand firm, fight smart, and build something bigger than your pain. Drop a comment below. What would you do if you faced Marlon's battles? Hit like if his resilience inspires you, subscribe for more tales of justice, and share to spread this powerful lesson. Thanks for joining this journey through a racist story that ends in triumph. Here's wishing you strength to face your own fights and hope to see a world where justice prevails.